One day, about a year ago, actually, I was laying next to him. We had worked on some home improvement projects that day, and I feel like God really laid it on my heart to just say, "Are you cheating on me?" I didn't even think it had never crossed my mind, but it was just something that I said that day, and I never anticipated hearing the words yes.
Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious efforts that you feel desired, taken care of, and special. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm revealing 3 ways to force your marriage to improve. My guest, Ellen, was devastated to find out her husband was involved with another woman. She felt lost, but she decided to find herself again in a dignified way. And she not only saved her marriage, she made it stronger than she could have imagined. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. But first, let's dig into 3 ways to force your marriage to improve, because that's what I wanted when my marriage was really bad. I just wanted to force it to get better through sheer will. And that's why I made him go to marriage counseling. I mean, I was willing to put in hard work and persevere, of course, because that's what I figured it meant to work on your marriage. I always heard it was a lot of hard work. Marriage is hard work, hard work. I heard that a lot. But the funny thing is, it's not hard work now. It's easy, it's fun, it's light. But it was hard before I knew how to force it to get better. So I was exhausted, I was frustrated, and I was impatient for it to change already. So I just wanted to know where to apply the force because I felt like I had plenty of that. And now that I know, and my husband can't stop kissing me and is always bringing me tea and chasing me around the kitchen island, I just think you're going to want to get this information and write it down. So here's what I know for sure forces your marriage to improve. Number one, bust the illusion. Bust the illusion. The illusion is that for you to be happy, to feel relieved, to fully exhale and lower your shoulders and feel safe. He has to stop yelling or working all the time or start helping out or start being more affectionate. Um, he's got to get on meds or he's got to get off drugs. Maybe the illusion is that if he heals his trauma in therapy, then he'll finally be able to show up emotionally. If he learns to express his feelings, to let them all out, or if he processes that stuff with his father or his mother or his time in the military, or accept that he's a narcissist or bipolar or borderline and start getting treatment. Then, and only then, you have a prayer of being happy eventually. Could take a while, could be expensive. That is what I believed. I had to find a way to get him to change, or else I could never be happy because I already wasn't happy. So I had to be subtle and, of course, indirect about it. I had to wait for a good time to mention it or just leave the information around so he would find it. I had to finesse it. I had to be indirect. So I was manipulative, but I felt justified. It was for his own good. But there's a reason manipulation has such a bad reputation. It's pretty repulsive and more obvious than I realized. Other times I was a steamroller. I urged him to see this doctor, get that medical test, or read this book, even though I hadn't seen that doctor or read that book. So I didn't really know. Okay, so maybe I was extreme. You've got me there because I had fully bought into the illusion that for me to be happy, he had to change. Now I know that when I'm feeling that way, it's just not true. It can still feel true even now, but I know that it's not. I'm so happy I can see through the illusion and know what it means, which brings us to the second way to force your marriage to improve. You ready? Here's what the urge to manipulate my husband indicates. This is number two. It's saying, it's time to pay attention to myself. That old crummy feeling that he needs to change is Just a sign that it's time to turn my attention to me, to find out what I need, how I feel, to look at my desires, to take a break or a nap or a walk. Tending to myself has forced my relationship to improve because when I stopped chasing him for something he couldn't give me, he stopped running away. When I was so fully engaged with myself, paying attention to how I felt and what I wanted, he was happy to sit right next to me and tell me about his day. There was no longer anything about me to avoid. Also, I didn't feel the need for him to get better because I already felt happy. Which brings me to the third way to force your marriage to improve, which is to surrender. It's to surrender. If you're anything like I was, you're thinking, I will never surrender because it sounds pathetic and weak. But I don't mean surrender as in sucking it up and just accepting a terrible, lonely, or painful situation or becoming a doormat. Oh, surrendering is like when I'm stuck in traffic and I wish the other cars would move, but I can't make them move. But I can talk on the phone or listen to music or a podcast that I love and still be happy and grateful for that time. So surrendering as a wife means I can't control anyone besides me, and I don't waste my energy and I don't waste the intimacy between us trying to do that. I don't tell John what to do or eat or say on the phone or how to do his work. Instead, I focus on my own happiness, and that in turn increases the intimacy. It forces things to improve. Surrender was my mantra when I was first trying to learn to stop controlling John. I would say, surrender, surrender to myself. When I felt that ugly urge to steamroll him come up in me, or even if I felt the urge to make a helpful suggestion, because helpful in wife language, it turns out that's controlling and critical in husband language. There was a joke on our campus for a while that there are 6 intimacy skills, and the 7th skill is patience while you're waiting for your man to get the message that you're not controlling anymore, that he's safe around you. And the joke was that you have to be patient until he comes around. But in my experience, my energy precedes me. When I want him to shape up in some way, to do the thing that I think he should do, he feels it, even if he's several states away and I haven't even said anything. If John's distant, it's usually a pretty good sign that I've got controlling energy preceding me. If I'm thinking he should come home now, he feels that. And then he doesn't want to come home. But when I'm surrendered, he can't wait to come home. Surrendering doesn't require patience because it's not unpleasant. I'm not waiting for anything. I've accepted things as they are and changed the things that I could. And now I'm enjoying my favorite song or a great podcast. All is all is well right now because I'm here tending to myself, which is pretty magnetic, even to me. When I'm surrendered, I'm not my same old controlling self, which means we can't be the same old us. That's how surrendering forces my relationship to change. If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. My guest, Ellen, was devastated to find out her husband was involved with another woman. She felt so lost, but she decided to find herself again in a dignified way. And she not only saved her marriage, she made it stronger than she could have imagined. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. Ellen, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm so excited to hear your story today.
Oh my goodness, Laura, I'm so excited. I manifested this so long ago. Laura, I'm just so excited to be here. I feel like I manifested this so long ago, um, that this would be the kind of fresh start for me. And so I'm just so excited to be here with you today and tell my story.
That's amazing. I want to hear more. I'm going to ask you about that, about how you manifested this, because I love the sound of that. But let's start back in the bad old days. What was going on?
Well, honestly, Laura, I thought things were great. I mean, we met in our mid 20s and just were enjoying life together. We love spending time together. Quality time was something that we had a lot of, and that never really changed. And so I feel like that may have been a piece of just kind of our way to finding our place in the bad old days. Um, I started feeling distance around year 10 of our marriage. And I asked him a lot, what, what's changing? Are you not attracted to me? Just not spending a lot of time together. And one day, about a year ago, actually, I was laying next to him. We had worked on some home improvement projects that day. And I feel like God really laid it on my heart, to just say, "Are you cheating on me?" I didn't even think it had never crossed my mind, but it was just something that I said that day, and I never anticipated hearing the words yes, and that's what I heard.
Oh,
Um, yeah, ouch.
ouch.
um, and of course, I had so many questions like, is she? And I named some people, and when I found out who it was even more heartbreaking, because I know her. I know her very well. I know her
Oh,
family. Um, we used to travel together. Our kids were friends. I remember walking into the shower, just because I just didn't know where to go. Our children were in the house, and I just remember standing there and crying, and just in my whole world had broken. And I I asked a lot of questions, do you love her? Really searching for pain, and yes, he,
oh,
he said yes.
oh,
Uh, of course,
oh.
you ask the other questions, what did you all do? And he hadn't crossed too many lines. He had kissed her. He didn't know how many times. I mean, it was just in my worst fears. I had dreams prior to this, um, that he had left me for another woman, or he was in love with someone, and the name of that person was one letter off from who it actually was. I can't make this stuff up.
No, right?
It it was unheard of, and I'd wake up in the morning like angry with him, saying like, I can't believe you did this in my dreams last night, and now I'm living my worst nightmare. I'm living it.
Wow.
Um, so after that, I went for a walk, and I didn't know who to talk to. I knew I needed somebody in my corner, and I thought about calling my mom, and I thought about calling my sister, and I love them both, but I needed somebody outside of my family because I didn't at that point didn't know what to do. And this was the first woman who stood for my marriage. She truly just listened as I cried, and she kept saying, "I know you guys are going to be okay. You're strong. You you've built a strong foundation in your faith, and you've also built a strong foundation in marriage. You guys are going to get through this." And she told me, ask whatever questions you need to ask him. And I asked him some questions. I don't even remember what they were because I was just in so much pain. And I remember him saying, and he was crying, and I think he cried when I walked down the aisle, and that's it. No funerals. Like, he's just not, he's a very emotional guy, but just not a crier.
Yeah.
And he said, "I wish we could go back to the way that we were.
Wow.
So,
So Ellen, I missed the part about who this woman was that stood for you. Yeah, I heard about you didn't want to call your mom and your sister.
yes. So she was actually, we lived together right around the time we both met our husbands. We were coworkers for a bit. She was just, she's just a positive force in my life. And it's funny because we always play phone tag together. We never can seem to reach each other. But that day, I think I called her twice and she picked up. And I just kept walking and crying and walking and crying. And I just knew, looking back that standing for your marriage, she was the epitome of that for me in the very first fresh moments of this hurt, this pain.
And that's pretty critical in a way because you're making decisions that are going to affect your whole life, your whole family, right in that moment. Yeah, it's an
Mm-hmm.
incredibly heartbreaking moment. Yeah, emotional. And she was there to say, this is going to be, it's all going to be okay.
And of course, my response is it has to be okay. I mean, and I know I'm biased, but we have the most precious children. They
Oh,
are they are just everything to both of us. And at this point, it's not just him and I. It's our whole world. It's our whole family. And I I can't I can't stand by and let that go.
no. So it sounds as though you made a decision in that moment. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I actually I found a journal entry um, from those first few moments, and I'm really thankful that I wrote that stuff down. But I said, I feel so brokenhearted, like there's a shattered pile in my chest. Um, I pray that God be in every word that I say, every look that I give, and every cry that I cry. Um, Give him strength to fight for me and give him the want to turn away from her. Give me the strength to stand in the darkness and not lose sight of the miracles only you can work.
Mm.
It was just, I also kept writing. I said, let's grieve what we lost and recover an even stronger love. I pray that he will understand I can and will forgive him, not because I feel bad for him and this situation, but because I don't want to live without him. My love for him and his for me has never and will never keep a record of wrongs. Like I knew I was going to stand up. I wasn't going to let you know, this world kind of say what it's been saying. If someone cheats, you're done. Like you walk away. That's the strong piece. And I didn't see that
Yeah.
for us.
That is amazing what you wrote. It's so moving. It's very vulnerable. And so it's so raw because I know what you were experiencing at that time,
Mm-hmm.
but your commitment just shines through. Like, where did you get that?
I have no idea because the next part, I went to my parents' house afterwards and I picked up my sister on the way. My mom already knew what was going on because we're such a close group. And I told my sister, I said, he's cheating on me and he loves her. And I just don't know what to do. Like I was just, at that point, I had just hit the sadness piece. And then after leaving my parents, I came back home and I was uh, a rage monster. I've never really been an anger expresser, but that day I was, I was so angry. And this is all in one day. I mean, I've hit all of the emotions. I kept telling him, you need to call your family. You need to tell your dad what you've done. I just, I was so hurt.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I I think I blacked out after that point. I don't know. I don't know. what the rest of that day brought until it was time to go to sleep. and he asked where he should sleep. And as much as I wanted to be a strong woman and say, you can sleep on the couch, or I didn't want to be alone. I I didn't want him to walk away from me, and he slept on the floor that night. He didn't feel that he had earned the right to sleep next to me. He just he felt so broken, and I'm sure that's on his paper, but um he he asked, what do we do the next morning? And I said, we go to marriage counseling, of course, because
Of
that's,
course. Of
what you
course.
do. Marriage counseling. I knew of someone who knew of a great marriage counselor, and I thought, okay, well, I'll give him a call and we're going to fix this. And that's that's what I was going to do. I was going to go to marriage counseling.
Okay, I love
And
this. I love
yeah.
the part where you became a rage monster too, because I think this is part of the story, right? As a mere mortal woman, you're hurting. It's like it's an 11 out of 10 of hurt. You want him to hurt too. That's just part of being a mere mortal woman, right? And I just love that you would
Mhm.
share that with us, that came in, that was there. And
Well, it came.
uh
It
yeah,
came in a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. Okay, so
Good.
but you have this great marriage counselor. So what happened then?
So it's going to be great, right? He's going to fix this in an hour once a week.
Yeah,
Um,
no question.
before we started the marriage counseling, though, I just remember those first few nights. I just wrestled with so much. Literally was like squirming in the bed. I was just in such raw pain because I we were trying to be strong for the kids. I was trying to not, you know, show them that anything was wrong. That I had to be, I had to keep being a mom. I couldn't just press pause on the mom part and just grieve what I'd lost. And I knew the other woman was going to be around. They worked close together in an area, and I knew that, she was around. So I was dealing with all of that. And I remember walking into work and I saw my boss, and I thought I could do it. And I started crying. I'm like, I have to go home. I have to go home. And I spent that day just continuing to just cry and get angry and cry. And that angry, it was like an empty shell of me.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, painful. So painful.
mhm. And every interaction that we had before marriage counseling was all of questions. Now I realized I was shopping for pain. I wanted everything just out in the open. If I know everything, then I'll be safe. And I asked, did you buy her a Christmas present? He did. Stuff like that. Did you ever talk about me with her? Obviously you recognize some problems in our relationship. Did you guys talk about those things? I thought that was so personal information to share with her,
Mhm.
especially because I didn't even know about the problems. If I didn't know about the problems, how come she gets to know about it? Um, and One thing he revealed to me is she had a lot of respect for me, and she thought very highly of me. And I think that was the first time I did duct tape, because I had so many things to say about that. How could she have respect for me? If she had respect for me, then this would not have happened. And
That's right. Yeah.
and she'd been having a hard time in her marriage, and he was trying to be there for her. And I struggled with all of that. But I was asking for it. So that was one of the skills that soon I'll get to learn. Um, so we did start on marriage counseling, and I recognized I didn't know how to fight fair or really listen. I was a big talker, loved to be, when we would fight, I would almost find a way to play the victim. Like I would find a way to be right. And I didn't know that about myself. So our marriage counselor was great in that he really established a rapport with my husband. They're two very intelligent people and used a lot of big words
Oh,
and I, I was just really thankful that our marriage counselor did build a rapport with my husband. He actually did some counseling on his own later on. So it wasn't all lost, but he would always put up this feelings list. And he thought that would help us come up with our feelings. And I remember you saying one time, not to say I am, no, I feel. And
yeah.
that's kind of how I felt about it after marriage counseling. I would say, so how are you feeling? And it just, it was another form of control that I wanted to use. Uh, he struggled to talk, and I wanted to like sit on my hands to just keep myself quiet because even the marriage counselor was like, okay, we're going to give him time. We're going to give him time to think, and it's okay. Like, hurry up. I wanted him to like come up with it.
Yeah.
Come on, you have a list? Let's go. Um, and then he mentioned a canoe because one thing that I kept telling my husband is that, like, are you done? Is this done? In the movies, like they're like, I'll never go back. Like it's no big deal. She's, I'm done. We're over this and leave her. And I just was never assured of that. And so he was talking about, you have 2 feet, one in each canoe. At some point, those canoes are going to move so far apart, you have to pick a canoe. And man, I prayed for that canoe. Like, get in mine, come on. And I just, I had such high hopes that, as strangely as it sounds, he'd pick my canoe. And at the end of the sessions, the counselor would ask us each what we needed. And I would always say reassurance. I wanted to be reassured because I was beginning to realize that my happiness all relied on him. And if he would choose me, then I would be happy. If he could reassure me, I could be happy.
Mm.
And that was a really hard place to hang out, is waiting on him to choose a canoe.
Excruciating.
And yeah, yeah. I mean, everything hung in the balance.
Yeah. He was
And
always be
of
checking
course,
his
it
paper,
came.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if I know what's on his paper, like I said, information, I'll be safe.
Yes.
So that's when I became even more controlling because that's how you get reassurance.
Yes.
um,
Yes.
and I wanted information about every interaction. Every day he would come home and I would say, "So, did you see her today? Like what? What did you guys talk about?" And I just wanted to know everything. I also wanted him to quantify his feelings for her throughout this process and compare them to his feelings for me. And that's just something he could never do. He would always say, like, I don't know what you're asking me. I'm like, well, how are you feeling about her? And how are you feeling about me? Seeing like, ooh, whose canoe is he headed towards today? Then I
Yeah.
could be safe.
Yeah. Oh, oh, it sounds hard, but so human, right? Yeah, I can just imagine saying like, okay, on a 1 to 10, like, how are your feelings for her versus, like, am I a
Yeah.
7 and she's like an 8 or right? And feeling like this is where, yeah, like there was some magical words he could say that would make you feel better in that moment. And of course there never were really. That
They
was the,
never, yeah, they never did. I never got those words
yeah.
ever.
But you didn't have
Um,
anything else too. Like, what else are you going
yeah.
to do? Right?
What
You didn't
else? I mean, I'm going to work, I'm coming home, and I'm just gonna either let my life hang in the balance or try and control it so that it'll all go my way.
right. And yeah, yeah. You just gotta
And
hope and wait. Just be patient.
Yeah. And my thing is, I just like to have something to do to where I feel like I'm making things better. That's why I'm sorry was such a big word in my vocabulary, because if I say I'm sorry, then I keep the peace and no one's mad at me and everyone's fine. And I bought books of date ideas with good questions to ask to improve our dating life. Like I did all the things. I think everyone has my email address. I just Googled it all. And I even, this is embarrassing, but I found a game that we could play where you draw a card with like a different question or affection, like give me a hug or a kiss or so. It was horrible and it was awkward. And, but I was desperate. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I had to
yeah.
do something. And I did notice though, I would listen to videos about people who had experienced emotional infidelity. And I did notice that that was such a huge help for me to know that I wasn't alone. And, you know, that combined with the hope that marriage counseling, we'd have a breakthrough in that 1 hour a week would heal us. And once again, it just didn't. Um, but then we went on a date and it was a great date. We went out to lunch together. My mom came over and watched our kids, and we bought new pictures for our bedroom because, of course, that's where we spent most of our time. And, you know, you can feel so traumatized in a space looking at the same pictures you stared at when your husband told you that he loved someone else. So we thought, fresh start. And I remember asking him, is it just you and me? And he said yes. And that was like my first SFP, my first spouse fulfilling prophecy. Although I didn't know that's what it was, but looking back, it was my way to encourage myself. Of course, you know, the fear continued, but it
Yes.
was something positive.
So
And
your spouse fulfilling prophecy was it's just you and me.
it's just you and me. And, um, but he did tell me during that date, you need to work on yourself. And it wasn't mean. It wasn't, it wasn't ugly. It wasn't any of it. He was like, you know, I know that you want to fix this. You can't fix this, but you can just work on yourself. And I recognized he was almost pointing me to self-care at that point. And that's the cool thing about this podcast is it's helped me look back to find those puzzle pieces that I never saw in the process. And um, you know, of course my response was controlling. I said, "Why? So you'll leave me?"
Yeah.
And and I said that. I mean, I remember that part very well. I was like, "Why? So you'll leave me?" And I was crying. And but looking back, you know, everything was coming. It was all coming. And the next day was another huge step. And we were supposed to go to a marriage conference at our church, you know, because that's a great idea. When you're really struggling, let's go struggle in, you know, in front of everyone. Um, and on the way there, my husband said, I can't go. I can't go. And I said, okay, well, why? Why? You know, this is going to help us. We should go. And so we decided to go to breakfast. And I didn't eat a thing because he said something that I just started crying. And so we left and we drove around. And he told me, we parked. I remember exactly where it was. But he parked and he said, you know, I can't tell you what you want to hear right now. And I feel like I owe it to you for us to have a conversation before we start really working on our marriage. And I asked her, do you still have feelings for her? And he looked at me and he said, I do. And I wish I could tell you that I did, but I do. And that was just, it'd been a month of just work
Was the night.
and
Yeah.
back to square one.
Oof.
And I left, went to my parents. I called his dad on the way. We have a really close relationship. He's a very godly man and someone that I've just really drawn close to in hard times. And I told him that day I was so afraid that his son was going to leave me. And I told him I'm just so scared. And they said, okay, well, we're going to come down and we're going to spend some time with him and we'll take care of the kids. Just, know, take care of yourself and we'll come down and see what happens. And this part gets really fun because at my parents, I I called my husband and I asked for the other woman's number because I had deleted it. I deleted everything, Laura. I deleted the pictures. I deleted every memory. I first deleted her phone number. I no. And he said, that's not a good idea. Please don't do that. So I got it from a friend and I called her. And of course she didn't answer. I don't think I didn't think she would. I called her a couple times and just two, not like no more than that. It wasn't,
Fatal
like 10 calls or
attraction.
anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't go that far off, but I left her a message. And for the first time in this process, I felt very dignified, even by today's standards, knowing what I know. And I I told her I'm part of this equation. And I know that when you don't see me, when you don't see my family, it's easy to forget that I'm a part of this. And I don't think I use the words I'm standing for my marriage, but I'm choosing my marriage. And I would really appreciate if you would let us work on this.
Mm.
And then I just broke apart. I hung up the phone. I remember laying in the grass in my parents' front yard with my mom and my sister and my dad. And I was just crying. They're like, what can we do? And I said, I just need to pray about this. I just need to pray. And I surrendered in that moment. I surrendered all of it and just said, I can't carry this anymore. I can't do this. I'm so tired. I'm so hurt. And I just need, I just need you to take this. I, I need you to take this. And I just cried out. I mean, it was just, I know for my family, it's heart wrenching to see me like that, but I needed to recognize that I couldn't do this on my own anymore. This was beyond me. And the cool part is that when I got home, I was talking to my mother-in-law and she told me, he really needs some space. You're not going to fix this today. You need to kind of give him a moment to work on himself. And, kind of that was kind of that relinquishing control piece. And then she mentioned a woman named Laura Doyle. That day, that day that I prayed about
Gosh.
surrender, I became a bit of a surrendered wife.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was, I didn't realize all that until I started kind of going through my journal, but it was that same day.
Amazing.
And yeah,
Yeah.
it was, it was incredible. It was incredible. And I signed up for the roadmap. I got the book. I started reading. It was something for me to do.
Yeah.
And highlighted, I underlined, I did all the things. And then I found the Ridiculously Happy Wives group. And I I knew that my parents had asked so many times, like, can we pay for counseling? Can we pay for therapy? I know that it's expensive, and my husband was like, no, like I'm paying for this. I'm gonna take care of this. This is, he that was his thing, but this was for me. I kept reading, the skills are for me. The skills are for me. And I was talking to my mom about it. She says, do it. Do it. We've got this. Here's my credit card. Let's
Oh,
go.
oh,
And I think it brought her a lot of joy to know that they could help, because they're seeing me, they're seeing my pain, they're
they're
seeing
seeing
me
your
laying in
agony.
the
Yeah.
yard. And I signed up, and of course I'm like, oh, what did I do? That was some money that I forked over. This is, I'm kind of a bargain girl. This is this is a lot of pressure. And I'm looking through, and I don't even know what I'm looking at. There's videos, and there's a lot of content in there. And then I signed up for the first group coaching call. I saw that it was unlimited, and
The
that
bargain.
solidified.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, that was the bargain piece. They found me in the bargain girl, and that's when I knew this is going to work for me. This is going to work. I was in my bedroom. I remember the whole thing. I had a big glass of water, and I was sitting with my computer, and my kids were playing, and I had the door closed for my, it said have a private space, and it was awesome. I was listening to these women just talk about their wins, talk about positive things, not like the negative of anything. It wasn't, my husband did this, that. It was just so happy and positive, and I was just desperate for relief, and I dove all in. I Every coaching call, I was there. I was in the background. My
Yeah.
camera wasn't on, but I was there. And when there wasn't a group coaching call, I was listening to something recorded. I went through those so quickly. And these people became like my family. They didn't know me yet, but I was so inspired. And I laughed with them. I cried with them. I read their stories on Circle. When I'd start feeling turmoil, needless emotional turmoil, or net, I would just go on these really long walks and listen to coaching calls, or I'd blow the leaves because that made me feel like I'd really accomplished something. And I'd listen to my group coaching calls and modules, and I really felt like I could do this. I can stand for my marriage. And now I have the tools to actually do it.
Oh my gosh.
It was
So
so
yeah,
great.
yeah, it must have felt great. I feel
Oh,
so
so
relieved.
great.
I feel so relieved just hearing this. Like
Finally.
finally, right? Like you had been trying and it was exhausting, but it was the wrong work. And
It was.
now finally you feel like, ah, I can see my way clear. I know
Yeah,
what to do. I'm
I
inspired.
do. I
Yeah.
do. And it was, every day was it was still hard. Those moments of inspiration, and then he would come through the door, and I'm like, okay, okay, let's let's try some things. Let's see what we can do. And so I started with the cheat phrases. I started with whatever you think and I hear you, because I knew I wasn't a good listener. I mean, the marriage counselor told me such, and I knew it. And to keep the net away, I think my dog was so exhausted from how many walks we went on, but she was happy about it. Now she looks at me like, "Are we gonna walk?"
You're like, no, I feel fine.
No,
So
I'm okay, believe it or not. And I made up lots of evidence lists that my husband loved me, and even at the worst of times, I could still find some things, and that really kept me going. And another thing, when he had said, I just want things to go back to the way that they were, there was a Laura Live that I'd listened to recorded that was talking about making a list for all of the evidence, not the evidence, but a list of what your husband did for you while you were dating. And that was huge because it made me realize my how I received things when we were dating, how I didn't analyze his moods when we were dating. And I recognized that I needed to start becoming that woman again. And I really realized that I lost myself. The Ellen that was that young 20 something was so different from mom Ellen. Mom Ellen, was trying to keep up with the house and be a great mom and be a good wife and spend all of our time together. Like no one gets to go on boys' nights and girls' nights and hang out with their friends because we need to be together. And he would make comments about, yeah, a friend of mine asked me if you know if we want to go out and have drinks, and I said that sounds great. I think I'm going to go out with my friends next week. Absolutely, like go. And I think he thought my head had spun all the way around. He's like, who is this woman? Like, what is she? Oh my goodness. And when I would start getting really stressed in net, I would get on Circle and I would just post my wins and post my challenges. And it was cool to start with those wins because I really had to search like, what are some things I did for myself today? And if there were none, I would do them really quickly. And he might be sitting right next to me while I'm like typing up my challenge. It was almost like I didn't have to take those things to him anymore
Oh,
to unload them. It was huge. I i had some light in that dark time, and it was still dark. I mean, it wasn't pretty yet. Nothing was shining up, but I just had somewhere to go. And I was soaking up the strength and the hope from everyone around me. And I bought myself a journal. I have it today, and it's my favorite color. And it says, be kind to yourself.
oh,
And that kind of became something that I recognized I wasn't kind and loving to me. And so all the wins that I had got to go here. And all the challenges I had got to go here too. But this was a way that I could be kind to me. And that was special. That was really special.
yeah. I can just hear the self-love is
Hmm.
flowing now and growing. And yeah, it sounds like it just felt really nourishing.
It did. It did. It felt like I was finding who Ellen was again, and I was excited to get to know her again. To, you know, I kind of liked her. I thought she was
You
pretty
liked
hip.
her, right? Yeah, she was cool.
Pretty cool.
She
I
was
liked
cool.
her.
And you hadn't really realized she'd gone missing. But once you did, you were like, it was kind of exciting to get her back.
It was. And I really thought when I first started the program, like reading about self-care, I didn't really know what that was. I thought it was like I have to go get a pedicure and I have to put on a bunch of face cream, and I didn't understand that it was like doing things for me, like doing things that I enjoyed. And so honestly, when I started, I thought, oh, I can just skip it. It'll be
Yeah,
fine. I don't
you
really
can
have
skip
time
that
for
part.
self-care
Yeah.
anyway. I'll just skip it. And of course, going on group coaching calls, it all comes back to self-care. Every call, it was like hitting me in the face because it does. It all comes back to self-care. And yeah, I I needed self-care. I needed it.
Well, yeah, it's
I
hard to
needed
do. It's hard to do any of the other stuff if you're not full from self-care yet. But
it. Yeah.
I mean I love that you would say that because I think 99% of students I think we all think that, right? Like, I'm going to skip this part. I got to get to the part where you make them decide what canoe it's
Yeah,
going to be in, right? So
yeah,
I got to
where you
find that
fix it.
part.
Like,
Right, right. Where he
yeah,
fixes.
I'll
Yeah,
figure
yeah.
that out. Like, I'm not here to hang out and like, do things for me. I'm here to fix this.
Right,
And
exactly. Yeah.
so I raised my hand for group coaching. I think even before I shared a win, I knew that night it was time, and it was one of the coaches that I really really liked, and I had heard her do some amazing coaching, and so I raised my hand. And I I think I raised my hand before like she finished saying like, "Now we're moving on to group coaching," and she coached me that night. And it was a very simple topic now that I think about it, but I think it made all the difference. My question was, well, if I'm not talking about the infidelity, what do we talk about? Like, I don't know. Please tell me what to talk about with my husband. I don't know what to do. And she said, well, share from your paper, share the joy from your paper. I'm like, so I'm supposed to have a paper? Like, I didn't know what that meant. And she was like, share what you did that day. And she's like, so how's your self-care? I'm like, there it is. Okay. There's where self-care fits. I have to it I have to have self-care to have a paper. I really have to take this seriously.
Mm.
And she told me, okay, let's make a list of 10 things. Just 10 things you can do that will help you have a paper and then share from that. And
Frivolous
from that
fun.
day
Yeah.
on, yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
fun. It was fun. I did the face cream, I did the nails, I did all those things, but I would walk barefoot in my yard. People were talking about grounding. I would go hiking. I even with my kids, I'd have a cup of tea every night because it felt warm in my fingers. And I was working at the time, so I would do some self-care there. I'd make lunch that I really enjoyed. I would put my feet up on my desk, just little things that would just make me feel good
Mm.
and filled up. And I was showing up differently. And I could see that. And then I was able to practice the skill of vulnerability. That was my next big move. I'd been, as I called it, in my feels about the old OW. And I recognized she was super present in my mind
Mm.
all the time. And
Not paying rent, just taking a.
just taking up space. And I knew they saw each other. I knew she was, I just knew, I knew it. And, oh, let's see. Ooh, I skipped around a little bit. Sorry. Um, and I asked him, are there any secrets? Are there secrets? And he said no. He said there's no secrets. And he was like, but I don't want you to worry about all of that. And I said, well, I trust you. I trust you. And I recognized at that moment, and I actually listened to a module that talked about other women and how giving them oxygen was not going to help you because you were only going to seek control. And then I didn't want to go back at that point. I didn't want her to, like you said, she wasn't paying rent, and it was just the person it was hurting was me. And there was also something else that you said that affected me so much with my timeline. And you said, um, OWs, other women, it's like swimming against a riptide. And I'm so into visuals like that, that I recognized that I was in for the long game. This was not something that I was going to be able to fix in a minute, but that if I kept doing the skills, if I kept swimming next to the shore, I I would make it to where I needed to be. And that if I would kept just doing it my own way and swimming straight at her, straight at the situation, it was just going to push me and my husband further apart. And that was big. That was really big for me.
Yeah, because you'd
It's
been wearing yourself out trying to,
so
trying to,
tired.
so tired, so
I was
tired.
so tired. And so no more oxygen for her. He would come home and say, "So I saw," and I'm like, I trust you. I trust you.
Which is
And
another self-fulfilling prophecy too,
yes,
right?
it
Because you
was.
didn't trust him really, it sounds like, but
No,
you decided
no,
to say
it
that you
wasn't
did.
a church. It wasn't a tear though, because I knew that I would see him look at our children with these puppy dog eyes. And I think the weight of everything was really heavy. That, it was our whole lives. We had such, other than certain parts, we really were living full lives with our kids. And that would change. That would really change if something happened between us. And so I also came up with a self-fulfilling prophecy, which I felt like was even bigger for me, that I was confident, loving, and deserving,
Mm,
because I would feel avoided. He would fall asleep in the kids' beds a lot, and I would feel avoided by that. And that was a huge net theme for me. It was always he cares about her, he doesn't love me, he's avoiding me. Like, that was a malware that was playing my head all the time. And to be awful, I needed to be these things, and I needed to believe in myself and know I'm worthy of being, of my canoe. And he had picked my canoe by that point. He had told me he had picked my canoe. But when you go through infidelity and there's lies and things like that, it's really hard for you to believe it and to
yes.
trust in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's um so then I I was ready for some apologies. I was ready to do the Laura Doyle apology,
Hmm.
and I made a huge list of them. And I didn't read all of them, but we sat on the back porch, and I I went through my apology list with him. And I told him I knew that I apologized for being disrespectful when I controlled everything. I controlled your time. I I controlled, trying to think, all of the, I mean, there was a lot. There was a lot of control. Let me see if I can.
Wait a minute. So Ellen, he cheated on you, and you said I was ready for some apologies. I thought you meant like I'm ready for him to apologize.
Oh no, it was time for me to apologize.
For you to
But
apologize.
that's, I know,
So
that's the skills for
how
you.
where do you get I mean, like
Well, I get it on my paper, Laura. I have to stay on my own paper. I can't
oh,
demand
okay.
apologies because now
I mean,
now that I know that I have a paper, like, I have to stay on it. And I'd heard so much about the power of apologies, but even more than that, like, I wanted to feel like I was doing all that I could to clean up my side of the street. I did have things to clean up. And I know my husband, like, he would never do something like this to hurt me. I think that's the last thing he ever wanted. And I think that was a lot of it, is that I created an environment where he felt like he had to suppress his feelings. If it wasn't happy or it wasn't good, I, he couldn't bring it to me because I would be defensive. I would put my walls up,
mm,
and I thought I was doing it to fix things, but really it was really saying, like, you can't bring that to me. And I told him I apologized for being disrespectful, and that um, I felt like I should never do anything wrong. And if I did, I should say I'm sorry. And if you still thought that I did something wrong, that I should defend myself and tell my why. and give the facts and tell you what they were. And I recognized that that was controlling. And he was floored. He was like, "Who is this woman?" I feel where, and I told
Isn't
him,
it a fun moment? Like his head's
yeah,
exploding and it's all like,
yeah.
okay.
He was very confused. And you've always said, a confused husband, you're doing something right. He was confused. And I told him, I apologized for not always being a good receiver. Um, I recognized I'd always had expectations of how I thought things should be done, how I thought he should show me love. I'm very I'm very into words of affirmation, and that's just not him. That's just not him. But when you start looking for good evidence that someone loves you, you see all the different ways that they do. And now I see them constantly and I treasure them. I receive them. And I apologized that, you know, I lost it. I just, I apologized because I thought that being a good wife meant that I had to do everything. And that if he made a comment about it not being right, that it wasn't insulting me. It was it was asking questions. I mean, simple things. He was never like, you did this wrong, you're this or that. He would just say, oh man, we got lots of dishes in the sink. Well, I've been working all day. And, just having to make excuses so that I wouldn't disappoint him. But
Mm,
that was so laced with control.
wow.
And
And
he
this
was
seems
really grateful.
you
Yeah.
dug deep. You dug deep. He was grateful, you said?
He was really grateful. He said, "Thank you. I really appreciate that." And for a man, a few words, that was big. That was big for me.
So this was you created this must have been an amazing moment of connection, this conversation where you
Mhm.
made all these apologies. Probably more
Yes.
connection. I mean, this is kind of what you were after when you were asking about the canoe in a way, right? But this was, yeah, him saying thank you and looking at you in an intimate way. And
Yes,
you did
absolutely.
that. You did that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
By
I love that.
looking by looking at my side, by looking at my side of the street, I was able to. He didn't have to tell me these things. This is the reason why this happened. I figured things out, and I recognized the big piece that really was missing was that emotional safety for him to be able to share with me things, his fears. He works a very stressful job. And I would come home and unload, and he never really said a whole bunch. But it may have been that I just didn't listen, or I made him feel like he couldn't share those things with me. Like I couldn't handle it. And I really was glad I was able to make this step and let him know that I was making some changes. Like he said, I was working on myself and I wasn't telling him any of it, but I was. And it was huge. It was
It's
huge.
like you sound empowered.
I was.
This is yeah,
I am.
yeah, yeah. You are. You are. I love it. Well, great job. I mean, so
Yep.
accountable. It's not easy to get to a place of accountability when you're feeling so hurt and wronged, but you did it. I
hmm
admire that very much. So,
I did.
yeah.
And then I ended up starting some church counseling just for me. I felt like I had a lot of faith over fear work that I needed to do and just some emotional trauma from all this that I wanted to release. And my counselor was very interested in learning about the skills that I was learning. It really lined up with a lot for personal counseling. And she even wanted the name of the author in the book for other clients. And I'm like, I'm telling you, this stuff, it's amazing. And um, so that was huge to have somebody in my corner who was working just with me. And I started doing some private counseling, not counseling, coaching with one of the Laura Doyle coaches. I signed up for 2 private calls, and I knew this particular coach had dealt with infidelity in a very close way with me. And it was such a positive experience to just have conversation, just her and I. And we laughed a lot. I felt like she was my friend. And she really stood for me. And whenever she was on a group call, it just kind of felt like, hey, how are you? Like she knows me and I don't have to dive back into the hard stuff to get to the coaching.
Ah,
And she was celebrating me, and it just felt so good. Felt good to learn from someone who's already walked the road and knows that there's light at the end of the tunnel if you just hang on. And I even cleaned up my side of the street. I apologized in a text message um, about I had sent him an article in the very beginning about when a man is going through infidelity, it's all because his brain chemicals are being released. And I mean, I reached way far back for this apology. And he said, I didn't feel disrespected. Like, you don't have to say it like that. I knew you were just trying to understand. And I said, well, no, I really want to apologize anyway, because I feel like it was disrespectful. And I just don't like the way I was showing up. That that kind of stuff doesn't serve me anymore. And then
wow.
his head really spun around.
I know,
He was like, what? I mean, I was probably in the program probably 3 or 4 months by this point, and I was already really having to search for more to clean up my side of the street.
wow.
And then it got distant again. It got quiet, and I kept going with my self-care. I kept going with my calls, and I just expected the best from him. I wasn't going to let my brain go back into the dark places. I was just going to continue to dive in. And one night I did. I asked him, is something on your mind? Knowing that that was a little controlling, but also knowing I wanting him to know, I'm here. And he just said, regret. I didn't ask him anymore. I didn't pry. I just said, I hear you. And he woke up at 3 a.m. that night, sitting on the side of the bed, and he was clearly struggling. And I asked if he was okay. And he said, I just wish we had never moved here. I almost broke us. And I regret that. And I could have piled on, yeah, you should regret that, letting him know how much that hurt. But I told him, I hear you, and I have a vision for us. And I had written my vision a couple of weeks prior of how I wanted to see us and what I wanted for our future. And I expressed gratitude that he was providing for us even when he was really struggling. And um, I told him I'm choosing my faith, and I'm proud of how talented he is at what he does. And it was just a miracle for me that we're finally getting to the part where he really regrets the OW. He's expressing it. Now, whether he felt that, I don't know, because that's on his paper. But it was so much emotional safety in that moment. I knew we were headed in the right direction. And I hated that he was hurting so much, but I was so thankful he felt safe to express that to me.
This is big because prior to that, he probably wouldn't have, right? Because there was no
Oh, no.
safety. He would say, I regret it. Well, yeah, you should regret it, right? Would be, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And you were able to
and
just be
next
so emotionally generous, right? And just and praise
was.
him for all the things that he was giving you, which is, yeah, so safe, such emotional safety, such intimacy.
Mhm. And I had such a great friend base where we moved, and a great church, and just opportunities for our children. And I told him I didn't regret being here. I didn't. I felt like we had a community that I didn't have where we were before, that I was able to just feel surrounded by people who were standing for my marriage, although not a lot of people knew, but it's like people come out of the woodwork to just love you and just encourage you, even when they don't know what you're going through. And I knew I needed to take steps to really release the trauma of the other woman and of him. And I took a lot of steps with my counselor and through my friendships to forgive. And I went through a process of writing down about all of the things I wanted to forgive them for. And that was really vulnerable for me because I expressed how much anger I had. And that's just not something I wanted to hold on to anymore. It wasn't serving me. And I just felt manipulated and naive. And I truly felt like I left a lot of what I was angry about and continued on in my journey. And that was pivotal for us.
Amazing. I
Mhm.
mean, that sounds, yeah, it sounds incredible. Like you left the anger behind and just kind of kept going towards your vision.
I was. I was becoming that woman that I wanted to be. And and then I found out that she was the other woman was leaving. She was leaving the job that was close to where my husband worked, and she put in her 2 weeks notice and she was leaving. Yeah, right? Oh, and yeah, whew, that was a big day.
I bet it
And
was.
he expressed that. And, I wanted to do my happy dance, and I did my happy dance
Maybe not in
on a
front of
group
him.
call.
Yeah, on a group call, exactly.
I got on that night. I was like, I'm going to go for a walk. Oh my gosh, guys, you won't believe what just happened. And I was so thankful for those women because they did the happy dance with me. But just the idea that that just wasn't going to be in our everyday was just mind boggling.
Yeah.
Um, but he was struggling. I think he had wanted to kind of change up his work situation so it didn't have to take that route. I know there was an ultimatum kind of placed at the beginning of everyone finding out, and I guess that ultimatum had been followed through on her family's side of someone's got to go. And I didn't make that ultimatum though, so I was proud of myself. I could
Right,
have.
right. Yeah.
Um, and so at that point, I really piled on the self care, a lot of social self care. It was summertime, and I ended up going and getting my cartilage pierced, which I felt like was like the new me, like I had an edge, and I was just really impressed with myself. My friend and I decided she had had a really rough year and was going through a lot, and we were at lunch one day and we looked at each other and headed to the tattoo parlor, which I've never been to. And
You
it was
rebel,
just so
you.
much. I know, right? I was just, I was excited about who
Yeah.
I was and what I was doing. And I was probably at my most filled up. And then it was time for our anniversary and year 11. And I was in so much net. I had so much expectation. We were up with his parents, and um, the day came and went, and they didn't do anything. There was no flowers, there was no nothing, and I bought a new dress, and I had gifts for him, and I just had, I knew we were going out on a date the next night. We had planned that, and I just, oh, I was crying on the porch, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, like, nothing, nothing. And he found me crying and he felt so bad. He was like, I'm so sorry. I thought we were doing everything tomorrow. And I'm like, but we've just been through so much. And I just wanted him to like recognize the day. We look at what we've been through. It's been like 8 months. And I just thought this was going to be the night, where anyway. But the next night was amazing. We went on an amazing date. We set up candles and it was just, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful night for us. And he had a beautiful gift for me. It just, I just didn't, I didn't communicate my desires. I didn't. And I apologize for that. I apologize for my lack of communication. And I, I told him, I just want to feel chosen and, and I'm sorry. I apologize for just kind of losing it and not expressing how I was feeling and just kind of having expectations. And I relinquished control of everything. He asked me, "Where do you want to go?" I was like, "Whatever you think." And I meant it. And we went to an amazing dinner. He made reservations. We had drinks. We had dessert. We walked around. It just, it was like reaching for vulnerability was so much better than the control I tried to wield over him. And
That is
it
a
was a
great
beautiful.
example of vulnerability. Someday when
Hmm.
you're a coach, you'll describe that
Right?
story to someone to help them
That's
understand
another
vulnerability.
desire we're talking about. um, and, he was really thankful for that vulnerability that night. And he expressed that. He said, he really just wants me to be happy. And that, of course, that made me think of the whole community because that's what we talk about. Our husbands just want to make us happy. And he just kept holding my hand and putting his arm around me and just all the things that I had written in my vision. It was all I even wrote that night in circle, my miracle, like felt like a seed that was getting ready to pop through the soil. I mean, it was coming and I was just, I was ready. And that's when I made my new SFP. And it was about our marriage and it was called the three P's because I needed something I could remember. And it was peaceful. We have a peaceful, passionate, playful marriage because that's what I wanted. I wanted the peace of not worrying about the other woman. I wanted that emotional safety and of course passion. Who doesn't want passion in their marriage?
Yeah.
And then we were always so playful. I wanted to be playful and flirty, and I had to remember how to flirt. It's been so long. And he even asked me one time, he was like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know, just flirting with you. Just had to like define it because it's been a minute. And
Yeah.
yeah. And and then I got really vulnerable one night and I shared with him just my fear of the unknown, that I'm missing pieces. And I think that was a big piece of the infidelity situation is that I missed it. I just completely missed it. I was the last to know. And I shared with him that I do respect our differences now. Now that I've recognized that we are different people and that we're mere mortal men and mere mortal women, which I've said to him before, um, but that he's always been my protector. But I want I wanted him to know that his heart was safe with me and that I feel like now my heart is safe with him, which was huge. And he cried. My big strong protector. I mean, he teared up and he said, "Your words mean so much to me." And I really felt like my heart was safe. You start those conversations and it's a bit of a stretch, but it wasn't a stretch anymore. I knew I was safe and I knew I was really that woman that he fell in love with and that I was deserving and I was more than worthy of him. And he's worthy of me because we do make mistakes and I was part of I had made plenty myself. I'd made a lot. But I was just so thankful that I fought, that I got down in those trenches and I fought for our marriage. And God, I just love him. I just love him a lot.
Oh, Oh, he sounds amazing. Sounds like you have a wonderful husband and
Hmm.
you're a wonderful wife. And hearing this story, I kind of almost wonder if you regret any of it.
I don't. I don't. I don't regret any of it, which is weird to say. I don't think that if he ever came to me and said that he was hurting or that I wasn't hearing him, that I would have been open to him saying those things. I would have been defensive. It's like I really did need a breakdown to have a breakthrough. And I never want to go through this again. I don't, no one wants this, but I know that he's getting what he needs out of this relationship too. It's not just my canoe, it's our canoe. And as much as I want him to only want me, I had to be the wife that he needed to. And she had she had just lost her way and lost herself. And this helped me get her back and strong because I've always dealt with anxiety in one way or another. And I never thought I had that strength within me. And so this year has changed everything for me to find the Ellen that I want to be. She's here. She's arrived. Yeah, she's
Ah,
here.
this is here. You did it. You have that strength in you and you know how to use it. And it's a kind of a quiet strength. It's not an insistent, demanding strength. Um it's a humble, accountable, dignified strength. And it's beautiful. And it's inspiring to hear.
Thank you.
How so what is your marriage like now?
It's different. It's different. Um, we both do our own things, but then when we come together, it's like really quality time. And he walks past me and he touches my shoulder, or he every morning he reaches out and just, hugs me or holds me, and I just feel that love. And he does this little thing where like he'll give you a hug and he'll just like squeeze you a little extra. And it's just like I missed that. And I didn't even know how much, I didn't cherish that before. But it's just I feel like I listen, and he has such great ideas, and he's funny, and it's just light and fresh and fun. But also I get to do what I like to do too. Like I'm my own person and I have great friends, and it's just and he does too. And it's a full life. We weren't living a full life. And what we have now, and it's still a work in progress. I mean, I'm a skills girl for life. It doesn't end when the miracle happens, like, all right, I'll go back to doing what I'm doing. Like it's it's a part of my everyday. And
Is it
I
is it hard work? Is it a lot of work?
not anymore. It becomes a part of who you are. It the more that you learn, the more that you try, the more that you are. It's like you you just it's a part of your everyday. It's not a dog and pony show. It's just a day in the life. And he mirrors everything. He mirrors the gratitude. That was such a huge skill. I don't even think I mentioned. I thanked him for so many things. I'd sneak little notes in his lunchbox, or send him picture memories and things of things I was thankful for. And it just he's really taken on that as well. And it's just it's happy and fresh and fun.
It sounds happy. And what about your kids? How has this impacted them?
Well, they're already the best in the whole wide world. No, they see us so happy. I mean, they did see me go through things. They'd hear me cry in the shower. I mean, they would, they always wondered what was wrong with mommy and mommy's just not feeling good, things like that while I was going through it. But now they see when mommy and daddy need time to just kind of do their own things or hang out together, and they just kind of go off and do their thing. But they see us just in such a loving light. We're a team. We've always been a team. And that's one thing. Our kids really, throughout the entire process, did get the best of us. They never knew anything. And he's just the best dad. That's part of my gratitude list every time. He is such a good dad. And he makes me a better mom every day. And so I think they've just benefited from having a mom and dad who, they really have a home court advantage. Like, and that was the big thing in the beginning is I have to do this to keep my family together. They're, they're everything. Family for me is just so huge. And so I just think they've benefited in all ways from us.
So proud to just be able to give them that out
Hmm.
of a situation that breaks up a lot of marriages. Um,
It does.
and it
It
didn't.
does.
It didn't. And you did that, right? I give you the credit. Like you fixed it. You did it. And he didn't even know what you were doing, really, while you were fixing it. So
No, no, he didn't.
yeah.
He didn't. Only recently did he
Only
learn
recently. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
there's this woman and she wrote this book and I've been doing this thing and I'd really like to talk to her because you don't want to keep it a secret forever. And he was so encouraging about telling my story. If it can help one person save
Yeah.
their marriage or even just feel like they can take a deep breath and keep moving forward, then it's worth it because these are the stories on this podcast and on the group coaching that like it kept me getting up every morning and put one foot in front of the other. And so the fact that I get to share this is so incredible to me.
Yeah. Yeah. More than one woman is taking inspiration from this right now. So it really is a huge contribution to ending world divorce. And you did the ultimate ending world divorce. You didn't have your own. You're not going to have your
Yep.
own because yeah,
No,
right?
no.
So, what do you think you would say to yourself if you could go back in time and tell Ellen what you know now?
Oh, Ellen, just be open, listen, listen, stop talking, and listen. But you're stronger than you think. You have a strength within you, and God has placed you right where He needs you to be. And you know, there's a song that says, "Don't lose your hope, don't lose your faith. That's where your fight is." And I would just tell her that, don't lose hope, don't lose faith, because that is where your fight is. And you're going to make this through. You're going to make it through. And you did.
And you did. So maybe you did tell her that. Maybe you're time traveling right now. I don't know. Seems
I
like,
don't either.
yeah. And what's your tip to somebody who is where you were, where her husband is in love with someone else and is, crossed some lines and kissed her, and he's not able to say, like, I choose you. He's just kind of on the fence, and she's in just excruciating pain. But she wants what you have now, where it's peaceful, passionate, and playful. And she gets that extra squeeze at the end of the hug.
That extra squeeze.
What?
I would tell her it's, um, I don't know the timeline, but it's attainable. You can do this. You have all the power within you to just find yourself, find what makes you happy and do those things. Self-care isn't just face cream and pedicures and manicures. It's you have to fill yourself up first and know that you're going to make it through. You've got to keep that goal in mind. And also, other women don't get to take up space in your mind. They're not paying rent. They're not, you know, that is, there's no comparison. There's just no comparison, you and her. And I wish I had known that in the very beginning and had the skills in the very beginning. But I just, to other women going through this, like you have this strength. There's always hope. And I've heard so many stories of women who've gone through the exact same things that I have that just let me know that this can be done. And also, ridiculously happy wives are ridiculously happy. And there's something to be said about people who stand for your marriage. And they, man, they really stood for mine. And I'm just incredibly thankful for that.
Mhm. Well, beautiful, amazing, inspiring. I want to give you my
Yeah.
award. Of course. Best Wife Award. You
Thank you,
deserve
Laura.
this. This is um an incredible accomplishment. Like what I can't think of anything I admire more. So this is your like the EGOT, right? Of Wife Awards, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and
Yeah.
Tony all rolled into one. Because you fought for your marriage. You found your paper. You found your gratitude. You found your faith, and you made a strong, wonderful family where there could have been a very broken one.
Hmm.
And I'm just so proud to get to witness your journey and have this front row seat, and that and grateful that you're sharing it with all of us today. So
Thank you
congratulations.
so much. Thank you for everything, for everything. It's amazing work. And, the skills changed not only my marriage, but they changed me in the best way. And I know I'm going to live a full life because I am a skills girl, and that's that's who I am now. And I'm just so thankful to be a ridiculously happy wife forever.
I love it. Thank you so much, Ellen.
Thank you.
According to a study at Harvard, and this was horrifying to hear, if you know a couple who's getting divorced, you are 75% more likely to get divorced too. Woo! It matters who you listen to, which is why over 7,000 women like you who think that having a great marriage is important have joined our free Adored Wife group. The Adored Wife group is a launch pad where you can meet our certified coaches and discover the best next steps for making your marriage last and thrive. It's 100% free to join. Just go to lauradoyle.org/group right now. This is a private group, and it's not for everybody, but if you are a wife or girlfriend who thinks that having a great marriage is important too, we'd all really like to meet you. So go to lauradoyle.org/group right now to join us free. That's lauradoyle.org/group. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, I will confess how I, Laura Doyle, ruined Valentine's Day last year. No joke. Sad but true story. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that my doctor told me to take 2 Advil if I was in a lot of pain, and just 1 if I was faking it.